Welcome to another deep dive. This one, you really sent us down a rabbit hole this
So I
time.
think the rabbit hole indeed.
It's Bob Camblin. And he's described as this kind of enigmatic artist, but clearly from all of this material that you sent, like he had a big impact on people who knew him and knew his work.
He did.
So we have all these excerpts from books about his work, his life, some really cool quotes, actually, like right from him,
Yeah.
and even like a YouTube discussion of one specific painting.
Right.
So I think our goal here is to really kind of like unpack like what was at the core of his artistic like thinking and kind of follow along the evolution of, his path as an artist and just sort of highlight like some of the ideas that keep popping up in his work.
Yeah, I think what you're going to see throughout this whole thing is that, even as you just said, he is referred to as this enigmatic artist. And we see that he has like thousands of pieces and they're just scattered across the globe.
Wow.
And, the sources talk about how highly he was regarded among his fellow artists
Okay.
and how rare it is to find his works on the market.
Wow.
And when they are found, they fetch quite a bit of money.
Oh, really?
And so you start thinking about, what was his relationship with the art world?
Right.
Was this like on purpose? Like, did he want to be this sort of like mysterious
Yeah.
figure? And, if that's true, what does that tell us about him?
Right, right. It's almost as if he like wanted to be this sort of mythical kind of like persona.
Right.
And what I like about this material too is that you've got a bunch of different perspectives.
Yeah.
We actually hear from him through some of these quotes.
Right.
We've got the biographical info that kind of lays out, his life and how he kind of moved through his career.
His development.
Yeah, we've got critical assessments of his work.
Yeah.
And then we've got this like interpretation of one specific piece.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I see?
Right.
So that gives us like a lot to work with, I think.
A lot of different facets to look at.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I think maybe the best place to start would be like just at the beginning,
Okay.
his early life. What were some of the things that kind of shaped who he became as an artist?
Yeah, so he was born in 1928 in Oklahoma.
Okay.
And from the start, both of his parents were artists.
Oh, wow.
So it was in the family.
Okay.
And the biography points out that, like, very early on, he was exposed to all sorts of different mediums,
Yeah.
like the basics, like pen and ink, pencil, charcoal, but also watercolor and oil paints.
Okay.
And, even in high school, he was the art director for the yearbook.
Oh, wow.
So he was already, like, had that leadership.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so those early experiences really seemed to lay a good foundation for him.
Right, right. And, the biography talks a lot about his, like, early years, Ponca City in the 30s and 40s. It was the Marlin era. And they talk about, like, there wasn't TV, really. Radio was kind of, like...
It was a different time.
Yeah.
Totally.
And they talk about, like, the grandeur and then, like, the decline of the Marlin estate and then the Pioneer Woman statue.
Yeah, they say that the Pioneer Woman statue was a big influence on him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and actually, they say that he would subtly reference it in his work.
Oh, wow.
Like, there's a bunch of double VVs,
Ah.
and that's for his mom, Viva Camblin.
Oh, wow. So he was, like, sneaking these little, like...
Little messages? Yeah.
Yeah, Easter eggs.
Easter eggs, right.
That's so cool.
And the biography also mentions The Wizard of Oz. Like, that was a big film for him as a kid.
I mean, I guess for anybody, like, back then, that would have been huge.
Huge. Yeah.
Because, movies were, like...
Yeah, all they had.
Yeah, everything. So it sounds like his family, but also just, like, the surroundings were, like, big influences on him, even as a kid.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and his friend, Forrest Harrisberger. Like, they were friends in high school. They both liked to draw.
Okay.
And then after they both served in the military, they both went to the Kansas City Art Institute.
Oh, wow.
Together.
Yeah, together.
Wow, that's really cool.
So, you can see that, these relationships, like, very early on, really, really had an effect on him.
Right. It's like those, like, early artistic, like, connections almost,
Yeah, absolutely. And he was a big reader. Like, he read all sorts of things. The biography mentions Emerson, the I Ching,
Okay.
and then, like, haiku and haiga, which, haiku's poetry, and then haiga combines the poetry with art.
Okay.
And I think, like, all of that speaks to, like, his artistic sensibility. you know,
Right.
that kind of like, simplicity, but also like deep observation. Right.
Like, haiku, it's all about like
Mhm.
these small moments.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. And then he served in the military during the Korean War.
Right.
And even then, like he was stationed in California, and they
Wow.
say he would go sketching with Harrisberger
Right.
along the coast.
Yeah. So they kept it up.
Yeah. So even then, he's in the military, and
Right.
art is still like this thing for him.
Still a big part of his life. Yeah.
Yeah. And then after that, he got a Fulbright scholarship and went to Italy,
Oh, wow.
which, I mean, that must have been,
Big time.
yeah, huge for him.
Yeah, the biography says that like he was mesmerized. He was like
Oh, wow.
totally blown away by the old masters and the impressionists.
Yeah.
And Venice became like his Oz.
Like his magical place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it wasn't only like the beauty and stuff. He was also like really into the Uffizi Gallery and get this, the Capuchin Catacombs.
Really?
Yeah, which is like, where they have like all these bodies, like
Oh,
the
wow.
mummies, and he called them like abstract figurative forms.
Mm.
And the biography points out that like, that stayed with him,
Wow.
like those forms.
Yeah, it's interesting how like sometimes the things that are not like conventionally beautiful
Right.
are the things that
Yeah, they can have a bigger impact even.
yeah, totally. The biography mentions how he would do like reinterpretations of some Italian artworks,
Oh, yeah. Like what?
like Botticelli's Birth of Venus, but with like a reference to the KPFT radio bombing, and then like Primavera he reinterpreted as Flora,
Okay.
but with like all this hidden imagery.
Oh, wow.
So he wasn't just like copying, like he was.
But we reinterpret.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's cool. So then he gets back from Italy,
Yeah.
and he starts working as a map maker for TWAA.
A map maker. That's interesting.
I know. That's like a whole other.
Totally different from me.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But then he gets into teaching at all these different places.
Yeah, yeah.
Which must have been like a really.
That must have had a big influence on him.
Yeah, yeah. So the biography mentions Ringling School of Art, University of Illinois, University of Detroit, University of Utah.
Right.
But the big move was like when he went to Rice University in Houston.
Okay. What happened there?
He had been in Salt Lake City, and they say he felt kind of stifled. Like Salt Lake City wasn't really like
Not the right place for him at that time.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Houston, they had like a more contemporary gallery scene,
Right.
more collectors.
Okay.
So it was like a better fit.
Okay.
And there's this idea of like Saint Bambola, which the biography kind of calls like a transitional phase for him artistically.
Okay.
And it sounds like it involved like these kind of
What, like a different style?
yeah, like kind of playful but also kind of creepy figures.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it sounds like he didn't really like the business side of art that much.
Really?
Yeah, like they said he was getting frustrated with like the art game. Like
Yeah.
he didn't like painting for money,
Yeah.
And he even like refused to take payment sometimes.
Really?
Yeah. Like there's that story about like the patron who gave him $100 bill sealed in glass
What?
so that he wouldn't have to touch the money.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So, yeah, clearly not into the art market.
Yeah. And he had like specific ideas about how art should be displayed. Like he thought it should be like in the artist's whole environment
Oh.
and like minimized distractions.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so he clearly had a very strong sense of like what he was doing
Yeah.
and like, what the experience should be.
Yeah.
And he had this like guiding philosophy.
About navigating the art world.
Okay.
And he said it was through faith and good work.
Faith and good work.
Huh. Yeah. So it sounds like he believed like just the work itself was like enough.
Yeah, you don't need all the other stuff.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's this idea of like stumbling blocks becoming stepping stones.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they say that's represented by like his paintings that have jars of water in them.
Jars of water. Okay.
Yeah, it was very interesting. Okay, so we've talked about like where he came from and what kind of shaped him early on.
Right.
But I think like we should talk about like the things that were in his work.
The themes, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the first one's scarecrows.
Oh, scarecrows. Okay.
Yeah, and he said that he got inspired by Günter Grass's dog ears.
Okay.
And at first they represented like spring renewal and rebirth.
Okay.
But then he developed a more in his myths and legends series. And then they'd have these like weird elements like lobster shells and larvae.
Really?
Yeah, and it was all about like metamorphosis, like change.
Okay.
But then later on, he started describing them as like sculptures.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So they changed like, how he saw them.
Yeah. And he said the text with them, like the titles and stuff, it was like a disguise
The disguise.
or like clues.
Okay.
Um, and that seems to tie into his whole thing about how like words and like experiencing art directly, it can be tricky.
Yeah.
And he got that from Tom Wolfe's The Painted Word,
Okay.
which is all about like how the stuff people say about art sometimes is more important than the art itself.
Right, right. Yeah, and that like leads into like the puzzle element in his work.
Right.
It was really cool.
Yeah, he was totally into that. Like he'd make these pieces that were like puzzles for the viewer to like figure out.
Okay.
And he'd include what he called data problems.
Data problems.
Yeah, and sometimes they'd be real clues, and sometimes there'd be like fake outs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, to keep you guessing.
Yeah.
And the biography says that like he was waging like guerrilla warfare on a visually saturated, word-oriented culture.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's like making you really look.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And like this whole thing with like metamorphosis,
Right.
like that comes up a lot.
Yeah, especially in his 70s work.
Okay.
And there's like connections to Freud, the psychologist, and de Chirico and Grunewald.
Okay.
They were artists.
Okay.
And you see these like images over and over, puppets, scarecrows, skulls, and then these murky water reliquaries, which I don't even know what those are.
Yeah, I don't know what that means either.
But like it all seems to be about birth, death, regeneration.
Okay.
You know, like the big cycles.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess like we have a limited view of his work too. So there's probably all sorts of stuff that we're just not even like aware of.
Yeah, who knows what else is out there.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got like the scarecrows, the puzzle element,
Right.
and the metamorphosis.
Right.
And the biography also talks about how his like artistic style
Yeah.
changed over time.
Yeah, well, like early on, he was doing these pieces with social protest themes,
Okay.
you know, and like with bold outlines.
Okay.
But then he got into this combo of like social realism and non-objectivity.
Right.
Which is like where it's not really about like
Yeah.
showing the world as it is.
Right.
And the biography says that was influenced by Cremoni,
Okay.
who did like distorted figures
Okay.
and also Etruscan figurines,
Okay.
which are like these ancient kind of simple figures.
Okay.
And then his drawings became like their own thing.
Okay.
Not just like sketches, but like huge,
Oh, wow.
like monumental. And you could see the corrections in them. Like he left them in.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, a good example is The Descent from the Cross.
Okay.
And then in the 60s, he was trying to bring together like the poetry of Hugo van der Goes
Okay.
and the emotion of Goya.
Wow. Okay, so it sounds like he was like pulling from like
All over.
yeah.
Yeah. And then in the 80s, he developed this style called Muchas Volantes.
Because this Volantes.
Yeah.
Okay.
With Nancy Giordano.
Okay.
And they used dots and dashes to make like optical illusions,
Oh, wow.
kind of like Escher and Dali.
Okay.
And that was all about like getting the viewer to like participate
Right.
in the image,
Yeah.
which seems to be like a big thing for him throughout like his whole career.
Right. Like you're not just looking at it, you're like,
You're part of it.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And he was really into collaboration.
Okay.
Like he formed B&E Productions
the any production. Okay.
with Earl Staley and Joe Tate.
Okay.
And they did these like crazy shows, like a tattoo show.
A tattoo show.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the Holding Firm Collaborative.
Okay.
And there was the camping show and Joe Tate's backyard at the University of St. Thomas.
Wow. So it sounds like he really thought like,
The process.
yeah, that like working with other people was
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah. And the biography says that like he believed in submerging the ego.
Huh.
And sometimes he'd sign his works as just Anonymous
Wow.
or Mr. Peanut.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so we should talk about Do you see what I see?
Okay, yeah.
Because we've got this YouTube analysis of it and then this like excerpt from a book.
Mm-hmm.
And they describe it as like this watercolor painting.
Okay.
And it's got these like kind of chaotic but also kind of deliberate strokes of blue, green, yellow, white.
Okay.
And it's like textured,
Okay.
but it's not like a picture of anything right away. But then like if you look at it for a while,
Yeah.
you start to see like a face, a heart.
Oh, wow.
So it makes you like come up with your own interpretation.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. And the analysis connects that, like, not knowing right away what it is to the Zen concept of mu. Yeah, which is like emptiness, no mind.
Oh, okay.
So it's not that there's like nothing there. It's that it's like open.
Okay.
So the viewer can like put their own meaning in.
Oh.
So like when you see the face or you see the heart, it's not just random.
Yeah.
It's like it reflects something about you.
Oh, that's like deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they compare it to the I Ching.
The I Ching.
Yeah, hexagram 61, inner truth.
Oh, wow.
And that suggests like there's harmony and chaos.
Okay.
So the painting's like this complex thing, but there's like this deeper truth in there.
Right.
If you can like see the patterns. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And they also bring up like Taoism.
Taoism.
Yeah, you know how they see reality as like fluid, changing, you can't really know it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the painting's like that too.
Oh, okay.
Like the forms are kind of there, but not really.
Yeah.
And it's saying that like truth is in like the paradoxes,
Okay.
like the things that don't make sense.
Right.
They also talk about this thing called apophenia.
Apophenia.
Yeah, which is where like people see patterns in random stuff.
Okay.
And it's like the painting's playing with that.
Oh, like
It's making us want to find meaning.
Yeah.
Even if there isn't any like real meaning there.
Right. Right. It's like tapping into that part of us that wants to like
make connections.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they say that it's like encouraging mindfulness.
Okay.
Like paying attention.
Right.
And being okay with like not knowing everything for sure.
Right. Accepting the ambiguity.
Yeah. And then they talk about how the painting's like a celebration of the creative process.
Okay.
Like it's like Camblin's own journey.
Right. Right.
Figuring things out.
Yeah, and we're like part of that too.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's a self-portrait of him, but also of like the viewer's mind.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like it's bridging chaos and clarity.
Okay.
Randomness and intention.
Right.
And it's saying that like meaning is something that's like co-created.
Oh, that's really cool. So it's not like just in the painting itself.
Right.
It's like
in the interaction.
Yeah.
And they say the book that you shared, the excerpt you shared, it talks about like, if the viewer looks hard enough, they can see a self-portrait and a heart.
Okay.
So again, like, the meaning's coming from the person looking at it.
Yeah.
Not just from Camblin,
Right.
And I think this analysis of this painting, it kind of helps us understand like his bigger philosophical ideas.
Okay.
Like one book review said that his art was questions disguised as images.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that makes you like think
Right.
about like big stuff.
Right.
The review talks about all these symbols that he used, like the figure 4 trap,
Yeah.
which could mean like being stuck or tangled.
Okay.
And then like the tattooed arm, which is about like hidden histories.
Right.
And then the frog,
Right.
which is like, from Zen,
Oh, yeah.
like about wisdom and transformation.
Right.
Yeah. So they're not just like random images. They all mean something.
Yeah.
And they say that like his drawings are like paradoxes made visible.
Paradoxes made visible.
Yeah. Like a trap that doesn't actually trap.
Okay. Right.
So he's playing with like illusion and tricks.
Yeah.
And like what's real.
Yeah.
And then there's these themes of impermanence.
Okay.
Like nothing lasts forever.
Right.
And it's like pointless to try to hold on to things.
Yeah.
But then there's also like this idea of stillness as peace.
Okay.
So he's looking at like these like opposite things.
Right. It's like accepting that things change.
Yeah.
But also like finding peace in the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's this book called Zen and the Art of Enlightenment.
Okay.
And they say, like, his illustrations in it are like visual koans.
Koans.
Yeah, they're these Zen riddles
Okay.
that are supposed to, like, break your brain a little bit.
Oh, okay.
So you can, like, see things in a new way.
Okay.
And they say, like, his art is trying to, like, help you find everyday enlightenment.
Everyday enlightenment. Okay.
Yeah, like finding beauty in the absurd
Okay.
and being cool with things changing,
Right, right.
you know?
Yeah.
So it's about, like, slowing down, really looking at things,
Yeah.
thinking about them,
Yeah.
and, like, looking inside yourself.
Okay.
Yeah. And they say enlightenment's not, like, this far-off thing.
Right.
It's something you're always working on.
Right.
Yeah.